Hello pretty peoples, Kawajapa no Kyodori desu. I am Kyodori from Kawajapa. Today we are going to talk about the two forms of Japanese adjective. This is something that the textbooks don't really tend to explain exactly what's going on here. They tell you what to do, but they don't tell you why you're doing it. And this is terribly important because if you don't know why you're doing what you're doing, if you don't know how they really work, you feel that you're memorizing a lot of random, unconnected rules, and it makes it very difficult to use them instinctively. Why don't the textbooks explain what's going on? I think it's because they don't want to overload you with a lot of extra information. They just tell you what to do and you memorize it and get on with it. But that's a little bit like not giving a shopper a shopping bag, because it would be something extra to carry. Yes, it is something extra to carry, but it's the thing that makes everything else easier to carry. So, let's look at the shopping bag. Let's look at how I and Na adjectives really work. We're going to look at 4 fundamental facts about I and Na adjectives. Fact 1. Na adjectives are essentially nouns. They work exactly like nouns, and that is why they need Na. And I'll explain that in just a moment. It's really very simple, and once you know it, it makes the whole thing much easier. Fact 2. I adjectives are very close cousins to verbs. They change their form the way verbs do. They do what the textbooks call conjugation, although it isn't really conjugation. They have their own te form. Na adjectives don't change at all because nouns don't. Fact 3, and this is really very, very, very important. I adjectives have the da, des function built into them. That is to say, the equal sign built into them. Let me show you what I mean. A problem here for most learners is that from the very first lesson, you get taught something that confuses this important fact. You will learn something like, hana ga kirei desu, hana ga akai desu. Now, kirei is a na adjective and akai is an I adjective. And the two sentences are structurally identical, aren't they? So, don't I adjectives and na adjectives work identically? No, they don't. And that is because in hana ga kirei desu, the des is necessary. It is a vital part of the grammar of that sentence. But in hana ga akai desu, the des is not grammatically necessary. It doesn't serve any grammatical function. It's only there to make the sentence formal, to make it polite, as the textbooks say. And this is one of the reasons why I think it is a very bad idea to teach desumasu Japanese, formal Japanese, first. Because students end up thinking that this is plain Japanese, and it isn't. If we put our sentences into plain Japanese, we can see what's really happening. Hana ga kirei da. Hana ga akai. This is correct, plain Japanese. You have to say hana ga kirei da because that da is the equal sign that connects kirei to hana. You can't say hana ga akai da because the da, or the equals function, is already built into akai, as it is into all I adjectives. Not only don't you need the da, but you can't have it. If you say hana ga akai da, it's like saying flower is red is. The is already there. You don't need the da, you can't have the da. So I think we're already a little bit clearer on what's going on. But what happens when we turn the description around the other way? Akai hana, red flower. Kirei na hana, pretty flower. What is that na there on the na adjective? This is the other thing that you don't get told and you really need to know. Na is da. You always need to have an equal sign, a da or des, with a so-called na adjective, and in its connective form, da is na. So when you say kirei na hana, what you're actually saying is kirei da hana. In other words, is pretty flower. Akai hana, you're already saying is red flower because akai doesn't mean red, it means is red. There's a word for red in Japanese and that's aka. When we add I to it and turn it into an I adjective, it already has the is function built into it. Another way of looking at it is to say that that I which we put onto aka serves the same function as the da or na on the na adjective. And you might be saying, why didn't anybody ever tell me that na is da? I asked that question myself. Everything makes so much more sense when you know that, doesn't it? Alright, now there's another hidden da that we need to know about, and that arises when we put two adjectives together. First of all, let's look at what we do with e adjectives. It's very straightforward. If we want to say small and cute, small is chisai, cute is kawaii, we turn the first one into the te form, the joining form, the conjunctive form. So we say chisaku te kawaii. The te form of an e adjective is formed by cutting off the e and putting kute on the end of it. Chisaku te kawaii. Very simple. If we want to connect two na adjectives, say kireida and yumeida, is pretty and is famous, what do? Well, we do exactly the same thing that we did with the e adjective. Now, you might say, but na adjectives are in fact nouns, and you can't change the ending of a noun. You can't put it into te form. No, you can't. But you can put da or na or des or whatever you call it into te form. And its te form is simply de. The te form of da or na is de. So we say kireide yumeida. And you see, we've done precisely what we did with the e adjective. Chisai means is small, and we put that into te form. Chisaku te. Kireida means is pretty, and we put that into te form. Kireide. The te form of da is de. You know, I spent probably a month wondering why the de particle was used in this strange way to connect na adjectives. But of course, this isn't the de particle. This is the de, which is the te form of da or na. That same da or na or des that we have to have every time we use a na adjective, and that we don't need with e adjectives. So, once you know these things, I think you'll find it easy to understand. Na adjectives and e adjectives really work. If you'd like to read this lesson, it's actually written as an article at Kawajapa, and I'll give you the link in the information section below. It's also a chapter in my book, Unlocking Japanese, and that is, of course, the course book for this course of lessons. So we recommend reading Unlocking Japanese along with attending these lessons. If you have any questions or comments, please ask them in the comments below, and I will answer. Thank you once again for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.